Hello everyone. Today's teaching will start in 5 minutes. 大家好，今天的活动会在5分钟后开始。 Hello, everyone. Simultaneous translation is available today. And before we start our program, we would like to introduce our translator. We will be opening the translation feature shortly. After we open the translation option, please click on the bottom right globe icon and select your preference language. Now, we will introduce our interpreters. Bella.
稍后我们会开启中文的翻译室，到时候请在下方点击地球图标选取中文即可。
Jacqueline, Cantonese。
我哋稍後會有粵語嘅傳譯。如果想聽粵語嘅朋友發友，請喺右下角點擊地球，選擇粵語。唔該。
Akiko, Japanese。
始めます前に同時通訳のご案内を差し上げます。まもなくしますと同時通訳のアイコンが Zoom 画面右下に表示されます。アイコンが表示されましたらそれをクリックしてご希望の言語を選んでください。
Luciano, Português.
Boa noite. A tradução simultânea estará disponível hoje e antes de iniciarmos, gostaríamos de apresentar nossos tradutores. Em breve, abriremos o recurso de tradução. Depois de abrirmos a opção da tradução, clique no ícone do globo no canto inferior direito e selecione o idioma de sua preferência.
Olivia, French.
Bonjour à tous, les traductions simultanées sont disponibles et nous allons ouvrir les chambres d'interprétation sous peu. Vous pouvez cliquer sur l'icône du globe en bas à droite de votre écran et sélectionner la langue de votre choix.
Sarah, Spanish.
Hola a todos, hay traducción simultánea disponible y en breve tendrán acceso a la sala de interpretación. Por favor, pulsa el icono del globo terráqueo que aparece en la parte inferior derecha y selecciona el idioma que necesites. Van a abrir la interpretación en breve. Por favor, esperar un segundo. Gracias.
Loponsonam, Tibetan.
정말 되시길래 donde Rinpoche 송초디니 계줄기 샵주여 비인비인디 소소 게 가래기 토는 인데여 비네 아니 디 샵량 게 담에도 디디나네 담하나로 나오는 쇼인.
Maria, Russian.
Дорогие друзья, сегодняшнее учение сопровождается синхронным переводом на русский. Переводческие комнаты будут открыты совсем скоро. Когда они откроются, пожалуйста, кликните на иконку с изображением земного шара и выберите русский язык.
We will open the translation option now. Please hold on a moment. The translation room is open now, so please select your preferred language. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We would like to welcome all of you to join us today for the very special event on the Buddha's birthday. It's also known as Buddha Jayati. This event is organized by Khyentse Foundation Kumara Jiva Project in collaboration with the Started Intent Taiwan and Started Intent Internationals. The Kumara Jiva project is initiated and led by Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. It is a historically significant Dharma text translation project whose aim is to translate all previously untranslated Tibetan, Pali, and Sanskrit Buddhist texts into both classical and modern Chinese in order to make them available to all Chinese readers. The aspiration of this by making these previously untranslated Buddhist texts more widely accessible for all study and contemplation, the root of the Chinese Dharma community will be strengthened. The Kumaradriva project is currently focused on translating the Tibetan Canon, while simultaneously training the next generations of Chinese translators of the Buddhist texts. Currently, the Kumaradriva project is running intensive translator training programs with students from all over the world, and we are still accepting applications from anyone inspired to join us. In order to promote some of our newly translated sutra, the Kumaradriva project started a sutra recitation program early this year. The recitation happens every month on the 1st and the 15th day of the Chinese lunar calendar. Today, we are honored to have Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche to teach us on the newly translated sutra, Cultivating Trust in the Great Vehicles, on the special occasion of the Buddha's birthday. This sutra was translated from Sanskrit into Tibetan during the time of the powerful Tibetan Tobu dynasty before the 9th century CE. The sutra contents relates to teachings on bodhicitta, which are also mentioned in great texts like Avadam Kama Sutra, the Sutra of 10 Qualities, the elements of the sutras, and more. It also contains important teachings on the faith. In Buddha Dharma, faith is said to be the mother of merit and virtues. And this sutra is one of the key texts giving teachings on the importance and practice of faith of the Mahayana. As a reminder, there will be a question and answer session guided by Khenpo Choyi Dorje after Rinpoche's teaching. Please submit your question at the Q&A box, and our technical team will support that shortly. So now let us welcome Rinpoche. Welcome and thank you all of you to join us today. Please teach us, Rinpoche.
First, I have to ask for your forgiveness for wearing this strange sunglass, even though I'm inside a room. I have a sty on my eye, one of my, to my right eye, and it doesn't look that pleasant. So some of you, this may be during your lunchtime, and it may be not so good for your appetite, appetite. And I was trying, to find a more, what do you call it? Subdued version of a sunglass, which I have, but I can never find it. Such is samsaric life. Whenever we need something, they're never there. Then I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to just introduce this sutra. On the very special day of Buddha's arrival or arising on this earth. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I believe that introducing the Buddha and his teaching has so much merit for just, individually for myself. And of course, I dedicate this merit to all sentient beings, especially because also I know that today is Mother's Day for a lot of people in different parts of the world. I think in Taiwan and some of the Asian countries, I believe. Mother is so important. Shakyamuni Buddha went to Tushita heaven to repay the kindness and the care of his mother. The value of the mother, the bondage, or I don't know, connection with the mother, I guess also with father, grandfather, grandmother. I think this value still exists in some parts of the world, especially in places like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, China. I was told that in places like China or the Chinese-speaking world has a lot of these, I mean, the biggest amount of 3 generations living under one roof. I think that's kind of that value will, I think, slowly, sadly, this may go. I hope not, because there's a new value now, the individualism, independence, and all that. So I hope and pray that today, in the Day of Mother, that this value will not diminish. Especially as a Buddhist, we think all beings are mother, not only metaphorically, but since the follower of the Buddha believes in reincarnation, all sentient beings at one point of time or many point of times have been our mother countless of times. Okay, so today I like to emphasize this. Today I am introducing this sutra, Arya Mahayana Prasada Prabhavana Nama Mahayana Sutra. It's a Mahayana Sutra, and the subject of the sutra is, well, in Tibetan we call it Depa. I don't know how to translate this in English. Trust, belief, devotion. I'm sure since this event is organized by a translator, I'm sure they will really put a lot of effort in trying to find the right word. And I mean, probably in Chinese, they already have a good term for this. But in English, I don't know whether the devotion, trust, faith actually really reflects what is meant by Depa in Tibetan. Anyway, let's use the word trust or believe for now, just so that we can communicate. I guess the word trust has some sort of a more neutral connotation, right? And in the scientific world, in the more, modern world, I have a feeling that sometimes the word believe has a little bit of a, I don't know, not really negative, but I don't know. It's like, it's a sort of look down, I think, sometimes. But you know what? Belief is all we have. Belief is all we are able to do as a sentient being. That's all we have. As long as you are interacting with your mind, I mean, how else can you, right? How else can you interact with anything without the mind? Table that I'm looking at right now doesn't have this mind that, oh, I wish to be a table. I wish to, I don't know, have all those on the top of my head. Basically, as long as there is consciousness, mind, and you interact with the world. You are doing it because you have a belief. And that's, yes, of course, we have a notion called objective. Even the objective is actually subjective. Recently, I was listening to a podcast by a great scholar. His name is Samdong Rinpoche. And he was talking about science and Buddhism. I can't really, I don't want to, misquote him, but what he said, essentially, what he said is the science is just a belief, nothing else. Of course, the scientists don't want to hear that. Belief and the trust is all there is. Okay? That's all what we human beings, that's how we, we function. Of course, some belief become more powerful just because, it seems to not fail, right? Every day you make coffee, and then it's every day for the past 30 years, it's coffee. Okay, maybe there are different versions of beans and roasting and so on and so forth, but it's a coffee. Coffee suddenly doesn't end up becoming tea. So because of the, function, because of, duration, and also because of the consensus, everybody says this is coffee, not tea, so on and so forth. So sometimes belief gets elevated as this is real, this is true. It's empirically, valid, so to speak. Since we human beings only thing we are able to do, especially at the beginning, is belief or trust. Having right trust is very important. And this is where this sutra explains so thoroughly. Anyway, this sutra happened at the peak of the Vulture's Peak. And there were a lot of incredible, sublime beings with the Buddha. And this happened to be a conversation with the Buddha and some of the Bodhisattvas. And the subject of the conversation happened to be about trust path. Now, I don't, I'm sorry to say this, but first of all, as I always say this, sutra is a really difficult to teach. I dare not, cannot. I'm just introducing here. I insist this. So my ability to explain the sutra is like basically non-existent. And I'm not even saying this as some sort of a, humility, practice of humility. It's the fact. Also, I'm a little bit busy today, so I may not be able to stay here long. So because of that, obviously, I cannot cover the whole sutra. But I'm going to extract few, especially from the beginning. It begins with the Buddha emphasizing on trust or devotion or belief, especially for the beginner bodhisattvas. And as he stated that, one bodhisattva whose name is Tepa Thapchen. I don't know whether we should be even translating those. I'm sure these names are they have a specific name. If I literally translate it, means the bodhisattva, with a great skill of devotion, something like that. He asked politely, how should one define in the Mahayana tradition or in the Mahayana path, how should one define devotion or the trust? And how a bodhisattva should gather or invoke this trust? And what different types of devotion is there? And what kind of benefit that this devotion or the trust has? So it's a very, very big subject. As a reply to that, Buddha was very pleased. He really praised this particular bodhisattva for asking this very important question. And he urged the bodhisattva to listen to his answer carefully. Thus began the sutra, the teaching. And beginning with Buddha saying there are 11 kind of characteristics of a deva or a trust or a devotion that is taught in the Mahayana. And I'm not going to, go through all of them, as I said, since we are really don't have time this time. And I actually also, it's not just because I don't have time. Even if I have time, capacity is not there. But I will try to explain first two characteristics of the devotion. And they are a devotion or the trust must be, trust or the belief has to be clear, clarity, okay, clear. And then the second one is sort of a moisture. Lenpa means like a moisture is sort of not a dry, basically. Okay, so let's talk about the clarity. What is this clarity? You know, when Buddha said that a devotion should have the element of clarity, clear, illuminating kind of. Then, as an answer to that, Buddha talked about 4 different kinds of, what do you call it? The opposite of clarity, dull or I don't know how to translate the word nyokpa, basically confused, deluded. So he talks about 4 different kinds of confusion. And when one is clear from these 4 different kinds of confusion, then we are talking about the characteristic of the devotion, that is clarity. So the 4, Kongchovi nyokpa, Yimichivi nyokpa, Dangwi nyokpa, Tesomji nyokpa. Buddha said, those who are devoted to the grand vehicle, Mahayana, they will have no aggression towards the path of the Mahayana. This is a very big one. This is actually taught elsewhere also. And this is a really big subject. And let's come one of the most important one. You know, non-duality, emptiness, shunyata. Many people are consciously or unconsciously, how should I put it, angry with it. People don't like non-duality. I mean, right now when I speak this, I don't know how you understand, but generally in our date, and I'm not even talking about some other religious people angry with the emptiness or shunyata, you know, of course not. You know, that may exist, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about people like you and me. People who are so dualistic, people who are so into extremes, people who are moralistic, people who are so into righteousness. Wisdom such as non-duality, emptiness is so annoying. People want, you know, like right and wrong, you know, direction, so to speak. You understand? It's like, and really, this is a really big subject. I mean, think about this. You know, people say, oh, you know, everybody wants freedom, right? Freedom. Really? Think about it. Real freedom will annoy you. Yeah, 1 or 2 freedoms, yes, we want. I mean, we like. Complete freedom? Scary. Annoying. People love black and white. Look at the world. Listen any podcast about economy, about politics, about, I don't know, anything. I mean, watch a movie, Hollywood movie, Bollywood movie, whatever. There's always a baddie, there's always a goodie. If there is no duality, Amazon doesn't have a business. So non-duality is so annoying. Really, it's non-duality is the worst news for the economy. In our mind, this is good. This is the best. Like this ink is the best. Like that. Okay, so the Mahayana, okay, so Mahayana's devotion. The Bodhisattvas, even the beginner Bodhisattva we are talking about, even the beginner Bodhisattvas, if they have adoration, admiration, get inspired by even the conversations of shunyata, emptiness, non-duality. That is freedom from anger towards non-duality, and that is one of the definition of what we mean by clarity. And therefore, okay, the second confusion is doubt. Okay, always. This is again very big. Doubt is like a modern world's biggest business. How do you measure? I don't know, anything, a person or whatever, or a book, like a restaurant. Okay, we are going to choose a restaurant. What do? You look at star rating, right? Rating, critics, like an element of doubt. Doubt is something that we cherish. Generally, we human beings, we cherish doubt. Yet, we are always pained and we are just suffering so much because of our doubt. It's just we human beings are the strangest creature. We cherish doubt and we are so bothered by the doubt also. Doubt of our own ability, our own, just everything. But that's how it is. Anyway, for the Bodhisattva's devotion or the trust, free from this doubt. The third, fear. A Bodhisattva Bodhisattva's devotion is free from fear. Now we are talking about, again, a very, very, very big subject here. You and I We are all conformist. Do you know why? Because we have fear. Validity. So important, isn't it? Legitimacy. So important. But here we are not only talking about that kind of fear. Fear of shunyata again. We want things to be real and solid. And if we hear, hey, they're not really real and not really solid, this is so scary. Okay, to be free from that is one of the quality, the third quality. That the fourth, patience or tolerance, actually. Searching, this is again a big one. Most of us, we just cannot tolerate ideas such as karma. I will tell you how, why we do not tolerate karma. Yes, generally we say, oh yeah, everything's karma, cause, condition, and effect, you know, like even the scientists sort of vaguely say, oh, you know, cause, condition, and then if there's no obstacle, the result comes. But if you really dig down, we do not tolerate that. Do you know why? Because we all are trying to fix things. Fixer. We think we can fix. We think we are like a God, Almighty God. We can fix. We do not tolerate. I think I can wash my underwear and dry. I don't tolerate, you know, the fact that maybe it will rain today. So there's no sun. And if there's no sun in Bir, where I'm staying, it gets so wet. And then all your laundry, all your underwear smells long time. So, and here we are talking, oh yeah, tolerate. We do not tolerate karma. We do not tolerate Buddha, omniscience. Oh, you know, we can tolerate some smart guys. But on all-knowing, omnipotent, omniscient, no. We can tolerate things like, oh, you know, like some truth, you know, like, okay, world is round, the sun, you know, like all those, you know, scientific stuff. But we do not tolerate things like shunyata. So that's it. That is one of the, that is the first one, the first salva, the clarity. Okay, the devotion, the characteristic of the devotion is a clarity, and clarity is defined by freedom from 4 different kinds of downfall. Okay. Okay, I'll quickly go through the other one. There's actually much more. Let's actually, since it's such a beautiful, sutra, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job because of time, and also I didn't, you know, yeah. And I just want to at least talk about the second one. You know, even the first one has so many things here, which, so let's just hope that we will meet again one of these days and maybe talk a little bit more about this. And anyway, before I forget, some of you may ask, so how do we gain this devotion? How do we gain this trust? How do we gain this belief? I tell you, of course, you know, the rational way is the hearing, contemplation, you know, asking questions, study, etc., etc. But you know, the best one is pray to the Buddha, Bodhisattva, so that you will have this. It's very funny, isn't it? How do you have the trust to the Buddha? Pray to the Buddha so that you will have trust. That's how it is. Okay, moisture. What are we talking about here? Devotion, moisture. This is a really big one. So we will not finish this one completely. Basically, Buddha said, a bodhisattva who has this trust, this Mahayana trust, this Mahayana devotion, this bodhisattva's body is always moistened by the devotion. And his mind will also be moistened. It's such a beautiful, what an incredible term. You know, how do you feel when your lip is so dry? How do you feel when you have no moisturizer? You know, you feel deprived. You feel like you cannot function. That's it, function. So this, when we talk about the moisture, we are talking about like glue. And then there's a very extensive discussions about the characteristic of this moisture. For instance, Buddha said, worldly beings, those who are enjoying the worldly enjoyment, they may have bliss with their body and their mind. But this kind of bliss we are talking about this moisture, and the moisture is defined in several ways. One is bliss. You see, a bodhisattva who really is devoted to something like a bodhicitta or a shunyata, because of even the beginner bodhisattva, and we are not talking about the big bodhisattvas, even the bigger bodhisattvas, because they are admirer of this truth that everything is an illusion. Somehow it makes them relax. It makes them have less anxiety, not fidgety, not stuck. And this kind of bliss is incomparable with the bliss that is obtained by worldly beings through their worldly wealth. Forget the worldly. And this is the part that I really wanted to say, and then I think I will have to end it. I have to say, share this. Of course, the bliss obtained by the worldly people through drinking, eating, I don't know, shopping, whatever, that kind of, like ordinary bliss. And the bliss of the bliss of the body and the mind of the Bodhisattva who has a devotion towards the Shunyata, incomparable. Because the bliss of the person who is like worldly enjoying has anxiety. Okay, that's it, kind of easily understandable. But this one, this is a very specific Mahayana. Even those who have probably renounced the worldly pleasure, but those who have really diligently entered into the world of things like shamatha, meditation, mindfulness, mindfulness, 9 days of mindfulness, 9 years of mindfulness, they have a very, very amazing different kinds of bliss. You can let's call it a spiritual, meditative mindfulness bliss. Okay, if you do, let's say 1 month, let's say intensive mindfulness meditation. Really, if you really do it for like intensive one, I assure you, you may even have like 2 or 3 spoons of food every day, and you are still happy, blissful, not hungry, healthy. Your mind will be sober, so on and so forth. Now here, Buddha is saying, even this bliss, they are nothing compared to an ordinary bodhisattva who is devoted to the Shunyata, to the Mahayana path. That bliss that is obtained by this bodhisattva through their devotion is far, far greater than the bliss that is obtained by the meditation freaks. Well, I'm sorry, I think I will have to go because I don't know, for some reason these days I have to do some teachings here and there. So my next schedule is calling, and I'm sure there's some merit for remembering the Buddha, talk about the Dharma, or that. I'm very sure of us, you listening, me talking, and this merit, let us all dedicate for the world that is becoming very volatile. I don't know, maybe becoming volatile, or maybe it's always volatile, I don't know. But may every one of us be sober, not get annoyed by Shunyata, not get annoyed by, ideas such as, bad and good, they are relative. People get annoyed if you tell these things. People really get annoyed. So we pray that people will be more, I don't know, there's more tolerance, more bliss, so on and so forth. And I always forget to thank all my translators who are doing incredible job. So this time I take the opportunity to thank all my translators who are doing, I'm sure it must be so difficult to translate, because many times when I listen, sometimes accidentally listen to my own teachings that people have recorded, I don't understand what I'm saying. So thank you. And thank all the organizers. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rinpoche, for your precious teaching. After a 5-minute break, we will start a question and answer session led by Khenpo Toyi Dorje. Please submit your question in the question and answer box. Once again, we would like to thank our teacher, Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. See you all soon in the question and answer session.
En inglés y yo las traduciré al español. Nos vemos en 5 minutos.
Hello, welcome back, everyone. The question and answer session will be in
Hola a
both
todos, bienvenidos de vuelta.
English and Tibetan.
Bem-vindo
La
todos.
sesión de
de
preguntas y
volta.
respuestas va a ser
Still available.
en tibetano y en inglés.
I'm sorry, all the interpreters, please wait for a minute. You will need to be moved back to the interpretation room at the moment because we are making some new settings. So please wait while Stephanie is talking.
The question and answer section will be in both English and Tibetan.
디워드다
This translation is still
백교다 인지
available
토를
in
중교래.
this Q&A session. And before we start the question and answer session, we would like to introduce our translator again. So now we will introduce our interpreters. Kamapadang Mandarin.
听中文的法友可以选择中文频道，谢謝。
Jacqueline Cantonese.
係各位聽粵語嘅法友可以喺地球儀嗰度選擇粵語，唔該晒。
Akiko Japanese.
まもなく、同時通訳のアイコンが、Zoom 画面右下に表示されますので、通訳をご希望の方はそれをクリックしてご希望の言語を選んでください。
Luciano Portuguese.
Então, nós vamos iniciar a sessão de perguntas e respostas, e para essa sessão vai ser aberta novamente a sala de tradução, e vai haver tradução disponível em todas as línguas também.
Olivia French.
Donc, nous allons commencer la session de questions-réponses. Donc, les questions, Khyentse répondra en tibétain, ce sera ensuite traduit en anglais. Et nous allons réouvrir les chambres d'interprétation. Vous aurez les traductions en simultané dans les différentes langues.
Sarah Spanish.
La sesión de preguntas y respuestas va a ser en inglés y en tibetano. La traducción simultánea sigue estando disponible, así que pueden hacer clic en el icono del globo de abajo a la derecha y seleccionar el idioma que necesiten. La van a abrir en breve. Muchas gracias.
Maria Russia.
Дорогие друзья, сейчас начнется сессия вопросов-ответов, которая пройдет на тибетском с последовательным переводом на английский и будет доступен синхронный перевод на русский. Переводческая комната откроется совсем скоро.
Just a reminder, for all the Tibetans, it will be happening in the main room. We will be opening the translation feature shortly. After we open the translation options, please click on the bottom right globe icon to select your preferred language. Thank you very much for Khenpo Choyi Dorje joining us today. Please allow me to introduce Khenpo. Khenpo Choyi Dorje is a well-learned Tibetan Buddhist scholar, well known for his fresh and engaging style of presenting Buddhist philosophy. He was a devoted student of late Ken Rinpoche's Kongo Wangchu and his eminent Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche. He joined Dzongsar Institute in 1992. He received his Khenpo title in 2002 and received his Khenpo degree, which is equivalent to a PhD in Buddhism in 2004. Khenpo served as assistant principal of the Dzongsar Setra in India from 2008 to 2012, and Rinpoche appointed him to be the head principal for from the 2013 to 2016 terms. In 2010, he was appointed as a teacher of Sakya Dosei Avikirata Rinpoche. In 2011, Campbell was sent by Rinpoche to UC Berkeley as a visiting scholar. Since then, Campbell was directed by Khyentse Rinpoche to give teachings and lead practices around Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and Mexico. Khyentse Rinpoche, thank you so much for joining us today. Here is our first question from our audience. Why is taking the first step towards trust is so difficult, even though there are such clear benefits? What can one do to make it easier to trust, especially during the beginning stages of the practice?
Tanda di tiwa tangbo di dire dula. Ta le tangbo den su dang tene thome du liang chik rangni gi jula yiche dang tene deba nyamsu lenya dang gombea di kali khabo sheda du chidang debe phenyen de dende ha go wa yimbi ne anda deba rangni gi jula su dubya la kali khabo sheda du di kareji ni nasa ani dende indi ani tanda di lamgi rimba da thome tyo diba liang rangni gi jula deba de da 약보진이 용약이 치도 가래지고 요레스 대비 표현된데 시에바 있네요. 대바당다 이치랑 얘기 줄라 고메야들라 클릭하고도스.
That's all. So
first of all, I would like to extend my greeting to all of you.
Duchi tenen lapor de jebji Dzongsar chenzer Rinpoche ke kachu ta kareso misa ke tipachi mendo nde songsimpi ke jisla teni twa tenling chepe ko kokap teni ya tepe mesi gauchung.
So I'm especially very happy because today, as we know, is the Buddha's birthday, and then also I'm very happy to be invited to participate in this question and answer session immediately after Rinpoche's teaching on that we has just come to an end.
Teni tambo ta chwa tambo te la chitang ta tepa ke phen shipa yin yang tepa tambo jewa tepa te junchong la kalendo te la kandi che gure te kandi chini yong yore si che gu yore bata.
So the first question is how to sustain one's initially, especially at the beginning, how to develop trust, how to cultivate trust, and how to sustain it, even if one knows and aware of the benefits of trust and devotion.
Chitang de tambo ta tepa ke phen kandi mi chudong jikding je geli kanga de nyongar se bi ke yam zaba de tepa yimba shipa 되게 토론이나 되네 수수고 조일 대파 제동도 강나 강좀 시나 되네 지당 연태 예만도 집어 지중래 다 문투니야 대파도 야제 동원 세발라 단 용니 용도 수수게 릉아 이해선 좀 배선 슉침부제니 컴프레치야 되다 내가 지금 직대 차대고 요랬어.
So of course as we know it is very important for us to appreciate that trust and the devotion is the sources, is the basis from which the goods and beneficial activities of both the worldly and the spiritual goods and benefits arise. So it's very important for us to know and appreciate how, for example, trust and devotion is generated, and then how it is the basis of such lofty qualities. And then, like any other qualities, any other spiritual qualities, one has to really put diligently and cultivate it diligently through one's own body, speech, and mind by focusing on it and how to, and really thinking and practicing so that it will be sustained and it will be cumulatively increased.
Tini chitang ta tengha charam khowa thoma me ban ta tar badla kumchu sam tawla ta debat ta ngazu ke je deshe go yore tindi ke debat de des gomba ja chen bo tindi cha thome be ki jumsen ji go ni ta de ke kawla na debat ji je ba yin na yang tin kap kala ya debat o se nyima che le ya pun yu de wa chi ta nyima che nin san ni ra me de tindi ke ka nga ta ngazu soma la yong yore chang chi bu chi mare se ta ko ngi chi bu.
And also because on account of our the habitual tendencies of our past life. For example, if we think of a devotion and trust towards three jewels in this life, because we are not familiarized with it, because we are not habituated with this kind of trust and devotion to the three jewels, all of us, we experience a fluctuation in our devotion and trust towards the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. On one hand, on one day it is fully there, but on the other hand, on the other day it might dwindle down. So it's not it's not only you, the one who is asking this question, but it happens to all of us because of our past habitual patterns.
Dati munthuni junjungyang phebrasebala ta chakkinda uji mambuji susugi juji jik lunga yi samji goni betsoyon jini sunamji tsusaya dan jik teni hlapur do sonji ji song jaju ke ka teni te gongde de jubi ki jinjung khebe ki tenchoy pena jase shiwala kin zai jaju ke teni junjung tawo tosola thusam teni jeni 제야당 근데 참마리과 도솔로 로병 들이 제바연도 도속해요 흥은지 대바탐지 야 슈키를 로야라당 되니 문트니 준종양 뜻을 팬도 전부 연구요리스와
So there are many ways and means through which one can sustain our devotion and trust towards Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. One is really to accumulate merit through one's own body, through one's own speech, and through one's own mind. So accumulating merit is one of the way. And then the second way of how to sustain and develop one's own devotion is really contemplating and studying Buddha's discourses like sutras, and also the treatises like, for example, the Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara. And really hearing and studying this text will also increase one's own faith and devotion and trust. And not only that, one could also study Buddhist epistemological tradition like the Pramana tradition and use this as a means to increase one's devotion, and then also use these as a tools to sustain those devotion.
teni dan dorchu dije bayina ngaso pena lupu tanda jangda che du teni lupu pe Mississippi ke lustra chempo chen tanda jongo yedba indi chana tan jangdar jesa ka naon rodi nima tapa tan rondo chempo gawo tanda yo marete rondo ka gawo yonanda menanda ti jongju ti tsawaran ma yaba chen jang jaba ina tan thar soso ke somde nangi ke lustra chempo yonga doas pena te nangi ke ta deba 가르소 야 컴플타야 게 탑시 도솔라 임베이나 남용 참자메 바 공토도 던지 베세 제바이나 드니 따타 지스고로 내가 지금도 우지 대 차도요서레스
So for example, we could take the example of physical exercise or physical training. If one has a kind of a vision to train one's body, and then one needs to invest in this kind of training almost on a daily basis. One may not like to train extensively and intensively one's own body, but because if one does not give up on training, after sometimes if we keep on training our physical body, we will reach a point where one has acquired the kind of the wished kind of a physical flexibility. Likewise, here in the case of devotion and trust, one should always find a means and method to sustain and cultivate it, and if one continuously strive in how to develop it without leaving it, then eventually one will be able to cultivate and develop the devotion and trust.
That's what. Next.
The next question is, how does devotion to the qualities of the spiritual teacher and the Buddha help us to improve our trust and understanding of the teaching? And how can one skillfully practice devotion to improve our trust?
Tene pena sozugi da lama ina re giwi shinin re dagana shingi tembo tubi wangbo din sulia ichi yoba ina konsugi da kyoche tsini din sulia ichi yoba inbe ina di ichi digi ani sozugi da chöle yang ichi kandes yargi yong tupsares tembala ichi bi jumsingi go ne ani tembala kandes ichi yong tupsares dagana shingi ani 양직 이치디 공펠 땅에 이치도 다 탑을 캐버 컨디션이스.
That's all. 다디 저와 배 내가 전부로지. 그래서 그럼 단디도 코랑 논에 다가랑 성규래. 송제 제 배나 땅 아주게 내로 가르쳐 걸 취제 단 망보직 송제지 송라 마트 바이나 하고 마트베네스 던지 망보 용으로 봐. 근데 하마고 마트베이나 대 던달라더니 가르쳐로 직 태섬라 소바던데 망보 용고 요리. 근데 인잖아. 다텔라 소바게 태섬 미용이 쳇들라 다페나 다갸게 템바 샤게트 번다고지 차야 보이나 샤캬 투바게 연딩 니파 세스 준지 나마 민주 주메스 성으로 송제 좀 된다고 제일 차야 보이나 준송할 세비기 주자바르는 메용잖아 되는 대우 준송아테 요 말에 세비기 딘디비기 이치지 송제를 이치지 요송 보이나 되는 송제지 송게 단 텔나나 그런 이치 롱슈클랩 용하지 땅 tani yishi yoba nangin ki tanda ki tanda yung taga nangin ki tuk tuyala ta pento pe message chimbu yungo yosir.
This question actually is a very important question, and actually the question is in a way addressed in the sutra itself. So for example, many subtleties and many factors and elements related with Dharma, if it is not taught by Buddha, we will not be able to understand it. And when we don't understand it, it breeds some sort of a skepticism or a doubt towards it. So, for example, if we have a deep appreciation of Buddha, and for example, in the Pramanavarti Karika, there's this memorable quote where the author says that because the Buddha does not have curse, he will never lie. So if we understand things like this and our own appreciation of Buddha and his personality will increase, and through that kind of increase of devotion towards the teacher, one's own kind of appreciation and devotion towards the Dharma will also spontaneously increase and will be able to sustain it.
Tene chitong tepa sejude Tangu Rinpoche sama nanging ke pe karasukuro jek tepa shibi ke böge ke tsikdi inji tole gyurgo na pe kale kago yobade pe na inji tole emotion se ke tsikin dujide böge to su gyurgo na tada jitini sambo jik tanye rago yomare pe na ten nanging ke pasanda se ndo sanskrit ke tsikla tadandi ndo korang ke ngola tenagi ke debate nomba sanje pe log debate inji ke to su juguna ti se mompo chi ya hin den ma to pe ke tata chi korong chu kothoya ji tindi ji ragmandwa ten di sana ngene deba se ji tila pe misipi ke karesuguro chechunda khakhe ju nge te dudi ji shugin.
So as Rinpoche was talking earlier, Rinpoche suggested that probably there is no equivalent to the Tibetan term Depa in English. Likewise, for example, the English term emotion cannot be accurately translated or rendered into Tibetan by a single word because there seems to be no equivalent in the Tibetan language to render the English term emotion. Likewise, probably same with the title of this text, we cannot exactly render this Buddhist concept of Depa into the English by one term. We might need to add and so on. In any case, when we are talking about devotion or Depa within the context of Buddhism, it has many levels of meaning and connotation and nuances. So I'm going to present some of these.
When Depa sejitila chitang namjute reisam onwe Depa debe Depa yichi big Depa number sum dinji segiris.
Normally, we tend to categorize the devotion or faith into three things. So first is the clear devotion, Dangvideva, Ichibideva, the trust, then Debideva, kind of a aspiring devotion.
Chesam tindi indisana chitang thombo rela pena songye je yuanting kusung tok yuanting teda thamje lobjung je yapu ji shya tang maseba teni chu je pen to so yabuji shin yanti to so yapon thong ditna then susula inspire sig marbe admiration sigrwa ta tinduji ke ne pa symbol da yana pe toanda tawanda tindiji chimbu che tindiji layon deba sigure tesa di sangje tang ta pena sangje da cha ya bayina sangje ji kusung thoge yandin te da tong ha khu cha di chana de rangni ki jula yana yang so yenden da wuji da tonden da wuji rang ki jula rang ri na de chande ji yo bayina de la yon de lan de te ba si shegure tani de ginda ta je 당구 공내 해바나기 그 상제 대니 준 무성킹 이 체사 플로아 매빅 강사 던지 렌도 삼비게 이치지 요바이나 텔 이치베 대바세 고리 체사 대다 강가 텔 대바세지 직직 농나 단다 던지 좀 던지 요데바 던지 제디 요리스.
So, for example, if we look deeper into these three kinds of faith or devotion, the first one is the trust or devotion characterized by clarity. Here it's a characteristics of a devotion towards Buddha and towards his teaching based on understanding the enlightened qualities, based on understanding the unique characteristics of the Buddha and Dharma, and then there is a kind of a clarity, a kind of a sincerity in one's own heart, and that is towards the object of one's own devotion, here in this case Buddha and Dharma, and that kind of faith or that kind of devotion is called clear devotion or devotion characterized by clarity. And then the second is that having seen these enlightened qualities in Buddha and Dharma, one also develops some sort of inspiration, admiration, and a wish, deeply felt aspiration to acquire the same qualities. That is what is known as the aspiring faith, faith to acquire the same qualities, to acquire the same state of Buddhahood. And then the third one is the trust, a devotion characterized by trust, and it is the same thing that we have already talked, namely if one has a kind of a trust in Buddha, in the sense that Buddha is never someone who will never tell lie, someone whom one can completely trust, someone who never deceives. So that kind of trust is what is the connotation of the third kind of devotion, namely the devotion characterized by trust.
제선 드니 인디잖아 드니게 대바데다 제당 송제당 추도 겐두 도속에 라그 연대인데는 야부지 시야당 송자주 추 도속에 다나 소선다이나 따제 야부제니 근데 송지 송아 따다 린도 송베게 소수 돌이 이친데 녀한다다 투섬지고는 근데 녀바다 녀버제야당 되니 제당 다 semji yinla hinji jayala soba tosuke goni nayo tap tosuke goni yon tepaya goni gondo peyala pentu chimbo yungu yorela nan nenga chekyu te katang gondo shuba na yike ta muntuni gamna lava menjube ngoy to goyo yoma yi songa na yike ta yani yongdo ta nyomlin jese gore ko o ta tendi chen tepa gomya to so de ta taphi ya hujik inshosres.
So, of course, again, I want to insist that there are many means and ways to sustain and develop one's own faith and devotion. So, as we saw, one is really to contemplate on the enlightened qualities of Buddha, of his teaching, and then the community of practitioners who are following Buddha. Likewise, not only that, one can really study, reflect, and think on the teachings that Buddha gave. So that is also a means of acquiring and sustaining the devotion through study and contemplation. Likewise, another way to do is really to cultivate compassion with regards to the sentient beings as a means to develop devotion and trust. In any case, as I mentioned earlier, in summary, as Shantideva said in his Bodhicharya Avatara, where he says that if one trains and familiarizes with something, then it is there's nothing hard. So likewise, in the case of devotion, the most essential kind of a practice is really to contemplate and keep on familiarizing with the devotion as a practice, and then eventually it will come almost like a spontaneous nature.
So next.
Next question is, what is the difference between the trust of Sarafaka and the trust of Bodhisattvas.
단다디 닌퇴기 대바당 장주심비 대변이기 버르기 개발대 가래 있었어.
지용 그 고니 다임베이나 단 동의 대바던 너베 대바다 이 집이 대바텔라 딕 존인네 제바 대좀 유어 말했을 때 대바 권한 거니.
So generally speaking, from the perspective of the devotion itself, for example, as we categorize it into these three lists, from that perspective, there's not much of a differences between the devotion of the Shravaka and of the Bodhisattva on the one hand.
Pena nöpe tepanda ujila sembayina yung songchu 장chu semba namjin nöpe tepate pena songjeji yanti to tongdu songjeji kohong yanti tendaji susuki juila semji yinji ta hinji kunin long yuka kunin na hinji depanda yulnda yimbayina songjerang la karesukuro nöpatawo tendratang te yendo ta yang 이치비게 대반 나오지 차이야바이나 베나 성지지 송야주게 티포 침보게 추 조부 성지지 공헌 토브르스베 그 사람지 남야 땡 야주게 용도솔라 이시당 대선 요구 때문에 유지 찬에 도좀 된데더니 제바 용걸 마도 지당다 대바랑 오니 동의 대반 대바 이치비 대바세 주도 정말 제바 요 말했어.
So, as I mentioned earlier, from the perspective, if you take the perspective of the abstractly, the devotion itself, then the three kinds of devotion, whether it is of devotion of the Shravakas or the Bodhisattva, there's not much of a difference. But for if you take a particular instance of these three kinds of faith or devotion, for example, the aspiring faith of a Bodhisattva, then one could think the aspiring faith of a Bodhisattva as interacting towards the Buddhahood. So the aspiring faith or a devotion of Bodhisattva will arise as a response towards having seen a Buddha, a real Buddha. And then in terms of its cause, it has a compassion as its cause. Likewise, its object, the content of that kind of aspiring devotion of the Bodhisattva is also the Buddhahood. It is aspiring to attain the Buddhahood, and this is really different from the Shravaka. Likewise, if you take the example of the trust devotion of the Bodhisattva, then Bodhisattva's devotion expresses a trust. Will trust the Mahayana teachings, namely the Mahayana teachings on the paths and the stages that eventually will lead towards the Buddhahood. So in terms of details and in terms of their actions, there are certain differences, but generally speaking, the Shravaka's devotion and then the devotion of the Bodhisattvas are not that different.
Next.
If all beings have Buddha nature, why are there different paths?
Gesi simjen 상말이한다 단도디 가르주고 대신인 보여빈빈 아니 람 타데버든데 가르지는 요버레스
다 저당 섬지 탐제를 데버리시빙 힘부 요바디 지바리티 이나요 네급라 다 대신 힘부 툴라 세고난다 군지기 토 세난다 섬줄레스 야고난다 박차세 그러와 딘디케 고니 저당 레영 타데요 데바 딘디기 요비기 줌싱 고니 다 섬지 넘버 하나 좀 데바 넘버 하나 송와 저와당 딘디지 용구도 컴 넘버 하나 소번 데바 넘버 하나 소번 제산 데바 넘버 하나 소번 요바 나잉게 데바 따돌라 yang druprasipe ke lomyong tene thate patene jamnende ji tham langkhepe gun tengya patene jes.
So of course all sentient beings are endowed with the Buddha nature equally and in a similar way, but on account of our differences in terms of the latencies and habitual patterns that is imprinted, so to speak, either on the Buddha nature or on the basis of consciousness or on the continuity of one's own mind, we express differently provisionally. So because of the difference in terms of habitual patterns, provisionally there are, for example, sentient beings are characterized by different predilections, different characteristics, and as an answer to this kind of difference, Buddha provisionally taught different paths in a very skillful manner.
Pena tani tandijige ngamge pakcha sendikiyong gewi shini la so be king dramada kawanki da chombe komhorong tunde jinji kangza jektang yang zo tadandi rong songje senanda patia ka Buddha segarwa tindije tupar tumdan debeke reiki tang tane zobu songje kong tupar debeke reik tindije tatepa tundiji yoba yindi tane te tupar debeke tap te tupar debeke lam tane tap hinji chimbu chinji zobu songje ma tindije ten yo chugo yore tane tindije ten tane lam tatepa som tindije tembares ta.
So, taking into account of these things, for example, some sentient beings on account of their previous karma and then also the condition in this life, having met a certain type of spiritual teachers, some certain sentient beings, they deeply are inspired and they aspire to attain the arhathood. Likewise, some sentient beings, because again of the conditions and circumstances and their background, they wish to aspire to attain the solitary realizer. Likewise, there are many sentient beings who, inspired by certain spiritual teachers and because of the circumstances and background, they wish to attain the Buddhahood. So taking into account this kind of diverse predilections and characteristics and inclination of the sentient beings, Buddha Shakyamuni, the compassionate Buddha, taught this diverse path as an answer to these different needs.
O chesam deba tandi tateba sonyo ba tardola tari jamden de jiyong lam tateba tandi somba deke somcharji nyambur tong khowale ya tharba seba tang korwe zawa atoso pongwa seba kyotan nipa wataso chasong danyam yode baresita.
So Buddha Shakyamuni, taking into account these basically three kinds of wishes and predilections and inclination, taught three kinds of path, but all three kinds of path has potential to liberate the sentient beings from the samsaric world and then also to extirpate the root of samsaric world. So all three has this potential, all three paths.
So next.
What is the meaning of all pure and impure rooms are Buddha's rooms? How can we train to see this?
Tiwadi dire dula tanda di da madala yorwal takbi shingham da madabi shingham la yadang dine sanji ki shingham la sanji ki shingham la da mada chaya di tonda tawji karares dine nganzoyo da dinde ki tabi shingham tuwaya ki chidu ani lega karaje gores.
송지 진행을 다음다 진행 다음다 요비기 점선인데 송지 랑이 송지 넘버 2게 연대 최종 거니 다음다 그 진행 넘버 2 용화든지 말이스.
So, for example, Buddha realms are, as we know, sometimes categorized as pure Buddha realms and impure Buddha realms. This does not mean that there are kind of a hierarchy in the qualities of the two Buddha, the Buddha of the pure realm and Buddha of the impure realm. It does not mean that.
Penna ngaronzo devajinji nupsu devajinji shingham dawena dagwi shingham. Tani ne tani la jik duha se ji tada ngaronzo minje ji shingham dana yoba nangi ji meo dana dagwi shingham se anda wata. Tani ngaronzo tada tamba shakya toba ke shingham minje ji di kham dana daba ji imbe na sonje ji shingham reti yina yang 다지 제가 난질을 수비 동화 가서 요데디나 다 마다비 신금신 근데 시고 여러봐서.
So for example, we think of the Western Buddha land as a pure Buddha land, and that Buddha land is pure in terms of it is the suffering is absent in that Western Buddha land. But on the other hand, our world, which is considered to be the Buddha land, the Buddha realm of Shakyamuni Buddha, is, as we know, is characterized by sufferings like suffering related with birth, old age, sickness, and death. So the two realms are Buddha realm. The one is the Western realm, and then our earth or our world, which is the Buddha realm of Shakyamuni Buddha, it's considered to be in a way impure realm.
Tene de la pena da jenking ki gongsa ji yorwa dewajil jenki gongza dang jidin dikhang jenki gongza susu gi jude ta mada ka wanki teni je tapar dan nawa da mada nawa tandi yungu yores.
So it's not objectively the two realms are pure or impure. It is the perception of the sentient beings who are born in those realms that determines the purity or impurity. So if a sentient being is born, and if that sentient being happens to his being happens to be pure, then he will perceive the environment as a pure, and vice versa.
Tendi in the dona tapu ya jewa tang takun hwa taso yopa tenen deba ina susuki ju de tapar sepe ki ju ye dewa jin jewa sepe ju ye se namju she de do to la so balam beson je go re ten ta mombo yore to son beso je go yo seres.
So if one really wish to be reborn in a pure realm, there are many means, and for example there are so-called 4 causes or 4 factors that leads to be reborn in the Sukhavati or in the pure realm. And so what one could do is one could really train oneself in the causes and condition that will lead one to be reborn in those realm.
So next.
All right. So I have heard that Mahayana is a causal vehicle and the Vajrayana is a fruitless vehicle, but also that the Vajrayana include the Mahayana. So what is the difference between Mahayana and Vajrayana?
Diwa diridula nge gotho le andan de thekba chimbo da jui thekba dang ani doji thekba de debut thekba re lani kosons ina yang da dung nge gotho chigla doji thekba de yang thekba chimbo re lani kosons tende indi tanda de thekchen dang ani doji thekba ni gi khebar de kar re nas
naso 인제다 특징 정도 지티바세 다 tin송게 제도 남준나나 파르스스비기 티바당 되네 소왕하지 티바도 도지티바세 남니 인트로지 세그레스.
Of course the terms like Mahayana and then the Vajrayana seems to be more prevalent nowadays, but generally we speak in terms of the Paramitayana and then the secret mantrayana.
Tenikal tikwa chimbusi yagu jumsin zode kare chadu yursena tan debu tatubate deni tasmbek zobu sanje de dand nyenni te miyunda yana zobu sanje kohon tuba te tubar sebek tap lana karso tap na lam tandejilam bepa o tablam tandeji tankinji imbi jumsin goni tikwa chimbusi shegu yures.
So both of these Mahayana and Vajrayana are Mahayana in the sense that the practitioner of both of these vehicles or this system aspire to attain the Buddhahood. So what they aspire, their ultimate goal or eventual goal that they want to attain is same, that is the complete Buddhahood, the fully enlightened Buddhahood. So in this sense, one can say that both of them are Mahayana.
Tene da zobu sanje ji kohon thoba te rongni le che zobu sanje ji kohon thobung disana nipa chembu dang da yende chembu ji yoli chasare somne soso tindi ji mi tindi ji gon mayen ba zobu sanje ji kohon te majur ji samji thamje songje ji sal kende ji sambe goni zobu sanje kohon dan nyamki nika tindi chade yores.
Likewise, the practitioner of Mahayana and Vajrayana are similar in the sense that the wish to attain the Buddhahood is also not on account of some sort of a personal desire, but it's really on account of the compassionate feeling that they have for the sentient beings. So the kind of a force or motivation that prompt the practitioner of Mahayana and Vajrayana to practice and attain the Buddhahood is that they would like to be of the greatest possible benefit to the sentient beings. So it's not an individual kind of aspiration, but really a benevolent one.
Chembos, tikwa chembos heve ki jumsi ni tapena ngazo sharwaka yananda oji chaja bayina sharwaka yananda ina ta ko mi thado din khorwali ma tharwa ke ta chombo ko hu to bade ta mi thado di zobo de tere de yures.
With regards to this qualification, for example, Maha, the great vehicle, right? So this a particular vehicle is qualified as a great in comparison to the Shravakas. So example could be this practitioner and of a Shravaka, they wish to attain arhathood. On the other hand, the practitioner of the Mahayana, they wish or aspire to attain the Buddhahood. So on account of the goal, one is qualified and characterized as great vehicle.
Then 미유르데 송게데 다다 다좀발이야 침보 된데지 레디딘 레보 된 레비티바 데 토브라세베게 주담 배운데 때나 샤바가 야나게 다잠지 공헌 토브라세베 졸 배고요레 특과 침보나이나 조부성제 공헌 토브라세베 졸 배고요레 제삼 델님볼라다 제 미유데 그 고니 특과 치정세 맹 넘준다는 된데지 따고요레스.
So the name, the level, lesser vehicle and greater vehicle reflects the goal of those vehicle. Mahayana, they aspire to attain the Buddhahood. Shravakayana, they aspire to attain the Arhathood. So there is a difference in terms of the goal, and in order to attain those different goals, they also reflect difference in terms of their practice and in terms of the causes that can lead one to the goal. So the level greater and the lesser vehicle reflects the goal and the means to acquire those goals.
가르쳐고로 제 도지 특과당 다다 파르드스마 특과 니가게 미유적인 바당 대 미유적 토브르스비 줄람 좀 배틀 집바임 좀 생각은 특과 전보임 바디 집바 안디지니 야그레스.
So the question is that Vajrayana and the general Mahayana are Mahayana in the sense that both of these vehicle, the Vajrayana and Mahayana, aspire to attain the Buddhahood. So they have the same goal and then also similar approach. So because of those identical goal that they wish to aspire, they wish to attain, and on account of the similar approaches, Mahayana and Vajrayana are classed together as Mahayana, as the greater vehicle.
Teni doji tikpa first tikpa jimoila juye tikpa dan devi tikpa segoya keta tejek tanga kena he tobiajik segorwa he deajik goni he boina miu jobu sangji ji kohonde topra sepeke jo phard simba trok tosola ta zo betchen ni jo rong la te topra sepeke jo rong la betchen jeba.
So now the difference between Vajrayana and the general Mahayana is, I will try to say something that is general enough to be, that can be presented here in these circumstances. A general Mahayana, the causal vehicle is causal in the sense that this the practitioner of the causal Mahayana, they primarily focused on 6 practices, 6 transcendental practices that can lead to the attainment of the Buddhahood. So because their primary focus is on the cause, the practitioner and the vehicle is known as a causal vehicle.
Doji tikwalan David tikwa segup jumsing de tata nyomse lendi ke kamne in the yembayena yang tato samya kandu segoro lokong de chene so tata lamla yam beduzani na sonso tatani shakyatomba dan randayimba so gam jeni shakyatomba la soba lato so gam jeni zegtang ta wepa mela soba so ina te gam jeni lu yang jeni zeg lu nga yang jeni zeg song togyong jeni zeg togyimba dan gam jeni tatani koro ndrebute 미근 레버티 임바 다다니 감쟁 냠니 드리지 제용 디잖아 된 레버티 와스 드리지 히나 과 드리지 나게네 디그레스.
So for the time being, you can understand the Vajrayana as a fruition vehicle or the resultant vehicle, because one could really think the practitioner of Vajrayana as being more open-minded and as more courageous. So when they are practicing from this very moment itself, the practitioner of Vajrayana, on account of their courage, they will visualize, so to speak, themselves as already as equal to Buddha, as equal to Avalokiteshvara, as equal to Amitabha, and they will practice and see themselves as equal to, for example, their physical body as equal to the body of Avalokiteshvara, their speech as equal to the speech of Avalokiteshvara. They will also visualize their mind as being equal to the mind of the Avalokiteshvara. So what they do is they take the resultant aspect as a path, and therefore they are known, the Vajrayana is also known as the resultant vehicle.
The equal said the take the dates and the Dan Danyo in Bagomanda would get a Gograva. Then Tatan the Chinese is wrong in Bagan.
So here maybe
Lupunda and the Chinese is wrong in Ba. Then Nag and the Manatus and then the Chinese is so wrong in Ba. Jenny Leka Karilana, Samjik Leka Samjik Dana, Soba Leka Karilana, Chinese Leka Rang Legio, but Tijik Gamnipa, Tachi Korong. Then Drebu Tatan Peju Drebu Sate Tatan Peju Jenny Nyamni Jebe Jumsinguni, then Drebu Tipas, Tendage Tan Nekap Koalang in degrees.
So for the time being, one can maybe the word equality is quite might pose the risk of misunderstanding. In any case, as a practitioner of Vajrayana, for example, when one practices, one really see one's body as the body of Avalokiteshvara. One really see one's speech as the speech of Avalokiteshvara, likewise to the mind. So what one does is one really takes the resultant state as the path and practice. So therefore, the Vajrayana is known as the resultant path.
Chesa, Nyamlin Jenita, Karesugoro. Gum siguna that the legend of the Tana, then you got a Juhitiwainare, Devutiwaina, the Zobosonji, Totoba, Jimsingoni, Tiba Chimbos Yabaresta.
So, in any case, the Mahayana, which is a causal vehicle, and then the Vajrayana, the resultant vehicle, both, however they practice, eventually they will lead to the attainment of the Buddhahood. Therefore, they are known as the Mahayana.
That's all. Next.
So, Karen Richards, I think this is our last question for today.
Okay.
So the question is, what is Sunyata? What is the best way to live if good and bad don't really exist? And are they just relative?
Can you show me the question? I could not see the question. Sorry.
Right. I can say it again. What is Sunyata? What is the best way to live if good and bad don't really exist? And are they relative?
The Tombani la de carresa. Tenen the Kesi Zangen la din su ta Tanye Zamin Beina ni Tsoa the Yakshu Gandes Jango Yores. Talamalungi Tsoa Yakshu Gandes Jango Yursungusel. Tombani de carresa.
Ta Tombani said you Jatan Jachim Shujire.
So to begin with the question of shunyata or emptiness, it's a very, very huge topic.
You know, tab devu goni she gabayina Tombani said you ta Maronsuke Korwa inare, Nyande inare, Sigi Kichu Karim Bayinayo. Maronsu means in the Jebek Kanzak, no one Nangin. No atado, no segi Korangla, Madapatandajila Kugores.
So it's a very huge topic, but maybe for the time being, we could understand it as, for example, we, the sentient beings who are conditioned dualistically, however we view either the samsaric phenomena or the nirvanic phenomena, however we view, the object that we view does not exist as it appears, right? Because we are conditioned by dualistic tendency, the object appears in a certain way, but that object is empty in the sense that it does not exist in the way it appears. So one can think of the emptiness for the time being in this sense.
Korang Ronso Omuguni Hegabayina, Ronhinji Madopachitang, Naronzo no Nayik, Deme Madopati, Chicken Chadiguris, the Tendachila, Tangmani, Sajiti, Qua Rorobkin and Tendilong degrees.
So samsara or nirvana from its own aspect does not inherently exist. Likewise, the samsara and nirvana does not exist as it appears to beings, dualistically conditioned beings. So for the time being, we can think of emptiness as the samsaric and nirvanic phenomena not having inherent existence or not existing as it appears to the dualistic mind.
Tene ta tindegi chu thamje rang ngowu gu goni rangi chba meonde zomba da ngemba la soba te ya France rono su ju ngeni shege ba ina nyambani tindegi cha de gu yorwas.
So because all phenomena does not exist from its own side in an objective manner and in an independent and inherent manner, the particular of phenomena like right and wrong too lacks this kind of inherent nature or inherent essence.
Tene ta tindegi nezu de tombo ha gowaje.
So now what we can do is, first step is one should try to understand this kind of reality or this kind of phenomena.
Songyeji song pena tada tepalan jugo gonda o thusam chepe ke goni nezu tindaji ha gowaje.
So for example, we can try to understand truths like shunyata, for example, through or based on the teachings of Buddha, like the sutra that we discussed today.
Tene nyamnyong chimbo jing dang yuandi chimbo jing dang ta jingje lama to so gundoni menga to so shu.
And then the next step could be really to receive teachings and instructions from highly realized teachers and also well qualified teachers.
Tene tanda to so tang ta pa ngi pan ra ni confident sigero go endi jing ngi pa ni simbi ki jesla ta chongdong de kare che gorsena ta di dangu ti chi pare te yani yondo kare so gam jap se gonanta o ta ti la gam chi go yoris.
So and then having studied and having received instructions and teachings from teachers on the shunyata, one should try to generate a conviction, some sort of a certainty with regards to the shunyata. And then the next step is like the one that we talked earlier, really how to get familiarized it in a personal and emotional way. So try to get familiarized with the truth of emptiness through habit, through practices.
Zonging ke rate so rong so ke zonging rong so ju ke ngo goni ya tropa me pa ha gowa cham ji goni pa nyambar de ya thug mare ta ngara so.
So for the beings like us, a kind of a mere intellectual understanding about the equality between right and wrong, we will not be able to kind of stay in a meditative equipoise on this equality just because of the mere intellectual understanding.
Jimsing kharitsena ta zongbo de ngemba de pa so yenje dang ta ngara so ngol chitan thoma na yin ke ta tendi jin zamba de la bakha de shukche ta ti bakha de thobo de ta thoma meba ne tendi ya simbi ki jimsing ji goni ta je nesu ke tendi ke tanda ha kwa cham ji goni lamsum te zongi de pa ya ndo tendi ji ne cheba meba ya gon ya thug mares.
So because of our habitual patterns from our past life, this life, habitual patterns, the dualistic habitual patterns of having distinguished and discriminated as being right and wrong and so on, our grasping, our perception, our view of it's too entrenched and too deep for us to, it's difficult for us to separate and leave them immediately.
Then so ta zongi te khorang rongyu ni madop na yin ke zongi le yewa me ba su su ngu ni ina yang ta te tan do tomba ji cha go yo ba ina tombo tang ge gong de she ba na yin ke tombo ha ko che ko sam bi ji se la ta te yong ni yong da gam jin gam ni den ha ngarang zu zongi le yen je che ni gam ban le hla chom si go na da this yurung bo gong go go ma da sherap ne lu dum tomba yin de na gong ta na ta gam bre je ni te pa kya do ma 첨본의 충성의 때문에 던지 존에 근데 콘데 냠바니 시긴 냠니세 송제지 공홍다 마이긴 던지 톱토고요사레스.
So as I mentioned earlier, it's intellectual understanding in itself is not enough. What we need to do is we really need to familiarize with this idea that the right and wrong does not exist from its own side. Therefore we should also try to find a means and then to really familiarize with this concept deep into our own being. And as we keep on practicing, until now we had been really accustomed and had been accustomed to the dualistic way of thinking. So likewise, now what we need to do is we need to accustom ourselves to the truth of non-duality, and then gradually, incrementally, one will be able to, for example, one will be able to kind of get rid of the like a really entrenched dualistic, and then make our dualistic tendency a little bit lesser, and then eventually one will be able to eradicate the dualistic tendencies from root itself, and then one will realize the state of equality of samsara and nirvana, the equality of the peace and existence and so on, which is itself a state of Buddhahood.
So, thank you so much, Ken Rinpoche. We actually still have a lot of unanswered questions we have collected, but because of the time limitation, we're not able to answer all of it today. However, Ken Rinpoche has agreed to answer all the unanswered questions after the event. So we will put Ken Rinpoche's answer on our Kumarajiva website in both Chinese and English. First of all, I would like to thank again for Ken Rinpoche again offering us such insightful guidance during his question and answer session. And to conclude, I would like to also introduce Jennifer, Director of Kumarajiva Project, to say a few words and lead us in the dedication prayers.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Ken Rinpoche, for this wonderful teaching. We actually have collected more than 88 questions, so maybe it would take a half a year for us to complete them, but it's really wonderful to have you. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining today, with special thanks for Khyentse Rinpoche and Khenpo Choen Dorje. And thank you everyone for your hard work to make this very special event happen. I would also like to express my special gratitude to people who have provided the music, the poster art design, and also our amazing Kumarajiva translator trainees. You are the ones who made it possible to have our sutra recitation event happen this morning. Also, I want to express my special thanks to all the interpreters and the SI Taiwan centers and Khyentse Foundation colleague, and also the technical team, Roger and Hajan, for making this event possible for all our friends around the world. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Kumarajiva translator team. You've worked very, very hard to make this long sutra available. I rejoice everybody who have made this event possible and all the Dharma friends who have joined us. So let's dedicate the merit of listening to these profound teachings to all Mother Sentient beings. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may I too remain to alleviate the suffering of the world. Thank you, Ken Rinpoche. Stephanie, I'll give this back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of you joining us for this program. We are warmly welcomed all of you to join us for our monthly Chinese Sutra recitation, which is held every 1st and the 15 days of the Chinese lunar calendar. If you want to know more about our projects, please contact us through the websites, and you can also email to us directly. We wish you all well. Thank you very much. Bye.